Hi, I'm Tracy and I'm one of the support team here at Scribe. A big thank you to everyone who's joining us today and welcome back to those that I've spoken to before. For my 5-minute round, I wanted to give you our 5 top tips on budgeting and forecasting. So starting with common budgeting worries. These tend to be lack of support, lack of time or lack of confidence, and issues with the current budget, or that you might be uncomfortable with the budgeting process. So this feeds into top tip number 1, which is to schedule time. So this is thinking about your time. So hopefully you already have your meetings scheduled to review and approve your budget and your precept, but this is thinking about you and your time. So allocate specific time in your diary. Budgeting is really important as ultimately we want to result in a precept, which is a key and important task. So we need to dedicate some specific time to this. Work back from those scheduled budget meetings so that you have a time frame to work to, a deadline that you know you can meet. And if you can, delegate and involve other people where possible. Give them some work to do towards the budget. If you do this, then obviously make sure that you give them clear deadlines to work to so that you still have time to put this information together. Top tip number 2 is to forecast. So forecasting is estimating the income and the spend for the remaining months to get that likely or expected end of year position. And you can then compare that to the budget. Do forecast for complete months. Now is an ideal time as we're nearly at the end of September. So we have the prior 6 months of actual data, and we can then forecast for the next 6 months to give that complete year. Do be realistic with your predictions. Make sure that you include everything you think is going to happen. So if your predictions mean that you expect to be overspent, then this should be what the forecast shows. This is an example of a sheet that we have as part of our free budgeting and forecasting toolkit. We will post a link to all delegates. There is a space where you can put in the budget, the actuals to date, and then the forecast that you're predicting, along with any comments or justifications. Once you've got that, compare the forecast to your budget and view those one at a time or line by line. Obviously, you're going to have to consider one-off or unexpected items, as well as things like inflation and the cost of living crisis, which makes everything that little bit harder as well. Top tip number 3, don't be afraid to start again. So whilst this might seem quite an extreme option, you may have come into a situation where your budget is not fit for purpose. It's either not detailed enough or it might be too detailed. So if it is inaccurate, it's better just to revamp it. In this case, you're likely to use zero-based budgeting. That is starting from scratch. So ignore the previous budget, ignore the current budget, that all goes in the bin. A blank piece of paper, start again. Build it up in a format that you want, so it's meaningful to you. This would be relevant if once you've done your forecast, it's inaccurate and it differs vastly from the current budget. Or of course, if you have new projects or new elements in your budget, then you'd need to consider those too. Top tip number 4, I think this is the most important one, make notes. Keep records of the decisions made. It's easy to go through the budget process now. Then by the time we get to April, the new budget comes in. What did we decide? Why is that number that number? So it's really important to make notes to act as an aid memoir for the decisions that you made and why. Then for the actual budget itself, notes are key for lines that have changed considerably. What changed? Why did it change? Notes for those lines that are estimated. What was the assumption? And those that are made up of multiple elements. Really important there. It's also a really good idea to keep notes throughout the year that you can then refer back to so that you use them to remember what specific costs do you know? What one-off or unexpected items do you need to exclude or include? What specific changes do you need to make to the budget? And then top tip number 5 is to monitor the budget. So it's not just about the precept. The budget gives you a good overview of your financial position and also aids with decision making. If you have a good understanding of the budget and you review it regularly, you're more likely to have an accurate budget as well as an awareness and understanding of the things that are likely to impact it. It is important to have regular budget meetings. Make sure you are comparing those actuals to your budget. To do this, you will of course need a good cash book, and that needs to be based on those budget lines. It's really key to make sure that you're actually allocating those transactions to the correct budget lines so that it's easy for you to review. It's also important that all members of the council understand the budget. Some are obviously always going to be naturally more financially knowledgeable and experienced than others. But if you can involve everybody in understanding the importance of the budget and also your budget itself, that's really going to help. So to recap then, those top tips are to schedule time, to forecast, don't be afraid to start it again if you need to, make notes, more notes, and continually monitor the budget. So a real quick roundup there. Hope you found some of it useful. If you'd like to come along to a longer session where we cover things in a lot more detail and think about how inflation impacts as well, then there's a date there you can sign up for on Scribe Academy. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.